You'd probably think I lost my mind, giving everything I owned to a stranger at a bus stop. But the truth is, I owed him everything. I know what they said about me. My lawyer, Patricia, she looked at me like I'd finally cracked, like all those years had finally caught up with this old brain of mine. "Mr. Harrison," she said, her voice all careful and measured, like she was talking to a child, "are you absolutely certain about this decision?" Certain. That's a funny word when you're 83 years old and you've spent 6 decades being certain about all the wrong things. Let me tell you how it happened, how I came to be sitting on that bench on Maple Street, with my briefcase full of legal documents, waiting for a 27-year-old kid I barely knew to show up so I could sign over $42 million to him. Just like that. No strings, no conditions. You want to know the real story? The one my daughter won't tell you? The one that didn't make it into those news articles that called me senile, manipulated, a cautionary tale? I'll tell you. It started 6 months ago, maybe longer. Time moves differently when you're old. Days blend together like watercolors left out in the rain. But that Tuesday I remember clear as anything. I was sitting at that bus stop, not because I needed the bus. God knows I had 3 cars sitting out in my garage, each one worth more than most people's houses. But my driver had the day off, and I'd just come from another doctor's appointment, where another young physician looked at me with those pitying eyes and talked about quality of life and making arrangements. The bench was cold, November cold, the kind that seeps into your bones and reminds you that you're closer to the end than the beginning. He sat down next to me. Didn't ask permission, didn't even look at me at first, just sat there, with his backpack and his worn-out jacket, the kind with the elbows patched up with fabric that doesn't quite match. His hands were stained with something, paint maybe, or grease. "Cold one today," he said. Not to me specifically, just out loud. The way people do when they're comfortable with silence, but don't mind breaking it either. "It is," I said. That's all it was. 2 words. But something about the way he sat there, not scrolling through a phone, not looking through me like I was furniture, it was different. "You waiting for the crosstown?" he asked. "No, just sitting." He nodded like that made perfect sense. "Yeah, sometimes sitting is good." I don't know why I started talking to him. Maybe because he didn't treat me like I was invisible. You know what happens when you get old? People stop seeing you. Your own children look right through you, waiting for you to finish speaking so they can get back to their lives. Waiters talk to whoever you're with, not to you. Strangers on the street step around you like you're an obstacle. But this kid, Marcus, I learned his name was Marcus, he looked at me, actually looked at me, like I was still a person. "I used to come here as a child," I told him. Don't know why I said it. The words just came out. "This very stop. My father would take me to the city on Saturdays, we'd ride the bus together, and he'd buy me a Coke from that corner store. It's a Starbucks now, but back then it was Moretti's. Mr. Moretti knew everyone's name." Marcus smiled. "My grandfather talks about places like that. Says everywhere had a face back then. Now everything's just corporate." Your grandfather's right. We sat there for maybe 20 minutes, talked about nothing important. The weather, the city, how the old movie theater down the block had been turned into luxury condos. He told me he was an art student, working 2 jobs to pay for it, painting murals on the weekends for extra cash. Art doesn't pay much, he said, but he didn't sound bitter about it, just matter of fact. It's like, it's the only thing that makes sense to me, you know? I did know. Once upon a time, I'd wanted to be a musician. Played piano, was pretty good too, but my father said there was no money in it, no future. So I went into finance, made a fortune, lost everything that mattered. When the bus came, Marcus stood up. "Take care of yourself, sir," he said. "You too, son." He wasn't my son, but the word just came out. I went back the next Tuesday, told myself I had another appointment in the area, told myself I needed the fresh air, but really, I was hoping he'd be there. And he was. This time we talked for longer. He told me about a mural he was working on at a community center in the South End. Said it was for the kids there, something to brighten up the place. I told him about my late wife, Eleanor, how she used to paint too, watercolors mostly, birds. She loved painting birds. "She sounds wonderful," Marcus said. She was. I didn't deserve her. I don't know why I said that either, but it was true. Week after week, I kept coming back. It became a routine. Every Tuesday at 3 o'clock, I'd be at that bench. And Marcus, he'd show up too. Sometimes he'd bring his sketchbook and draw while we talked. Sometimes we'd just sit in silence, watching the world go by. He never asked me for anything. Not once. Didn't even know who I was. Harrison Holdings, the hedge fund that bore my name, the houses, the investments, none of it meant anything to him, because he didn't know about any of it. To him, I was just some old man at a bus stop who liked to talk. And God, it felt good. To be seen as just a person. Not Harrison Holdings, not the father who was never home, not the husband who worked through anniversaries. Just me. If you believe real kindness still exists, then like and subscribe, because this story, it's proof it does. One Tuesday, I told him about my son, about David. We hadn't spoken in 11 years, not since the argument, the big one. The one where he said I cared more about money than family, that I'd missed his entire childhood for board meetings and business trips, that Mom died sad and alone while I was in Tokyo closing a deal. He wasn't wrong. I'd tried reaching out over the years. Cards on birthdays, emails, phone calls that went to voicemail. But there's a point where sorry stops meaning anything, where the damage is too deep, the distance too far. "Have you tried lately?" Marcus asked. "What's the point?" I said. He made it clear. I'm not his father anymore. I'm just the man who donated DNA. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "My dad and we didn't talk for 3 years. Stupid fight about my major. He wanted me to be an engineer. I wanted art school. He said I was throwing my life away." "What changed?"
I showed up at his house one day. Didn't call ahead, just showed up. We didn't hug or cry or have some movie moment. We just started over. Small. Like strangers learning to be friends first. I thought about that all week. About starting over. About the idea that maybe it wasn't too late. But then came the diagnosis. Stage 4. Pancreatic. 3 months, maybe 6 if I was lucky. Funny thing about knowing you're dying, it clarifies everything. All that money, all those years of building an empire, and I'd be leaving it to people who'd fight over it like vultures. My daughter, Karen, she had her lawyers send me papers about conservatorship, said she was worried about my mental state. Translation, she wanted control before I could do anything crazy with the money. My son David, still silent after all these years. And the rest, cousins I barely knew, business partners circling, everyone suddenly very concerned about my well-being now that the end was near. I sat in my study that night, looking at my will. Everything divided up into percentages and trusts. Cold. Mechanical. Numbers on a page. And I thought about Marcus. About Tuesday afternoons. About the only person in 6 months who treated me like a human being instead of a balance sheet. So I called Patricia, my lawyer. Told her I wanted to change everything. She tried to talk me out of it. They all did. Said Marcus must have been running some kind of long con. That no one is genuinely kind without an angle. That I was being manipulated. I told him he doesn't even know I have money. But they didn't believe me. The paperwork took weeks. I had to undergo psychiatric evaluations, 3 of them to prove I was of sound mind. Had to sit there while doctors asked me what day it was and who the president was and whether I understood the consequences of my decisions. I understood perfectly. I was giving $42 million to a stranger because he was the only one who'd given me something money couldn't buy. Dignity. Connection. The feeling of being alive. I didn't tell Marcus. Couldn't find the words. How do you explain to someone that they saved your life just by sitting with you? That in a world where your own children treated you like a problem to be managed, a stranger at a bus stop gave you a reason to wake up every Tuesday? The last time I saw him was 3 weeks ago. I was weaker by then. The cancer was winning. But I made it to that bench one more time. "You don't look so good, Mr. Harrison." First time he'd used my name. I'd finally told him what to call me instead of sir. "No," I said. "I'm not." "Anything I can do?" I almost laughed. This kid, with his patch jacket and his paint-stained fans, asking if he could help me? Me, with more money than God. I told him, "You already did. You have no idea, but you already did." He looked confused, but he didn't push. That was another thing I loved about him. He knew when to let silence be enough. I said, "Marcus, I need you to do something for me. Go to this address next Tuesday." I handed him a card. Patricia's office. 3 o'clock. There'll be some papers for you to sign. Papers? Just, can you promise me you'll go? He took the card, still confused. Okay. I promise. That was the last time I sat on that bench. My last Tuesday. I died 2 days later. Peaceful, they said, in my sleep. Probably the only peaceful thing I'd done in years. But here's what nobody knows. What I need to tell you before this recording ends.
Marcus went to Patricia's office like I asked. Signed the papers. Didn't understand what he was signing until she explained it to him. $42 million. Everything. The houses, the investments, the whole empire. He apparently just sat there in shock, kept saying there must be a mistake, that he was nobody, that I barely knew him. Patricia told him what I'd written in my letter, the one I'd sealed and left for him. Told him about our Tuesdays, about what those conversations meant, about how he'd given an old dying man a reason to feel human again. And then she told him the rest. The part I'd only learned myself 6 months ago from a private investigator I'd hired. The part I'd never told him during all those Tuesday afternoons. Marcus's last name
was Harrison. Different branch of the family tree, distant enough that we'd never met. But his grandfather, the one he'd mentioned, the one who talked about places with faces, that was my little brother, James. The brother I'd lost touch with decades ago over some stupid business disagreement. The brother who died 5 years back, and I didn't even know until I read his obituary in the paper. Marcus was my great-nephew, my blood, and I'd found him by accident on a bench I visited because I was too tired to wait for my driver. He came to my funeral. I know because Patricia told me she'd make sure to record it, just in case these recordings made it to the right people. He stood in the back, didn't say anything to Karen or the others, just stood there, with tears running down his face. Afterward, he went to the bench, our bench, and he painted a mural on the wall behind it. Patricia sent me a photo before I went, wanted me to see it before the end. It's a piano, black and white keys, spreading into birds, Eleanor's birds, and in the corner, in small letters, for Uncle James. You were seen. He never knew I knew about the connection, never knew that I'd found him deliberately after learning he existed, never knew that every Tuesday was my way of trying to fix what I'd broken with James all those years ago. But he knew enough. He knew that sometimes kindness is the only inheritance that matters. So no, I didn't lose my mind. I didn't get manipulated by some con artist. I didn't make a mistake. I finally got something right. Be honest. If you were in his place, would you still believe in kindness after losing everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to know what you do. And if this story hit you even a little, don't just scroll. Hit that like button and subscribe. Because every story here isn't just a story. It's a reflection of someone's truth. Maybe even yours.